In this video tutorial, we're going to create this editorial motion graphic using Photoshop. We'll begin by creating a document that's 940 pixels by 500 pixels with a resolution of 200. Next, we're going to copy and paste the Ukraine flag into the new document. I'm going to scale it and rotate it so that it's at a diagonal. It takes up about half the file. I want it to appear as if there's a bit of a wave in the flag, so I'll hit Command T on the keyboard, right click, holding my mouse down, and choose warp. And then I'm just going to bend it so I've got something of a curve like so. Next we have to create the cloud and sky pattern behind the flag. And if we drag through and take a look at this, you'll see it goes from a bright blue to a dark and back again. We'll create a new document that's 1850 pixels by 525 pixels, also a resolution of 200. I'm going to use my gradient tool to create the sky that goes from a blue to a gray. Hitting G on the keyboard or clicking on the icon on the toolbar, I'll make sure the gradient's chosen and also that classic gradient is chosen. I'll click on the color box to the right here and I'll access my color pickers at the bar at the bottom of the gradient editor. Clicking on the tab at the bottom, I'll click on the color picker for the color on the right. And in here we're going to make our red 122, our green 204, and our blue 199. Now we want a gray for the other side, so we'll click on the color picker there. And we'll go to the color picker bar. And in here we're going to make red, green, and blue 121. I'm going to give myself a little work area around the perimeter by opening up the document from the lower right corner and holding my shift key. I'll click and drag and let go. Next I need to add a layer for clouds. Putting a new layer in, I'll hit B on the keyboard and I'm going to make sure that my brush hardness is 100%. And I'm going to make sure the opacity is set for 100%. And then I'm going to start with a larger brush. And all I need to do now is with white, start with a brush. And if I would just click here now and then hit the open bracket to reduce the size, I can add some smaller circles. So essentially we are creating kind of a very highly graphic cartoon, sort of a cloud effect. I'm going to make a number of these, so to do so I'll hit V on the keyboard. Holding the Option key, I can now drag them around my document window. So this is pretty subjective on how many of these you put and where. Once I've created them, I'll go to my layer window, I'll select all the cloud elements in the layer window, and I'll merge them together. Now I can do that by going to the white waffle in the upper right hand corner of the layer window and choose to merge layers, or I can hit Command E on the keyboard. Now I want the clouds on the right hand side to be darker in value, so I'm going to lock the transparency. And once again I'm going to refer to my toolbar because I want to create a darker value of gray, not quite black. So I'll begin by hitting I on the keyboard and I'll select the gray of the background. And then I'll go to my color picker on the left and I'll just bump up the value to something more of a middle value. Now I'm using a value that's about 80 for red, green, blue. And I'll click OK. And then I'll get my brush. I'm going to make the brush considerably larger, but I'm going to soften the edge on it. So I'll reduce the hardness to about 20%. And I'll start by filling in the ones at the extreme right. And then the one that's kind of straddling a bit here, I'll just go in and I'll just color part of that, just so there's a bit of a transition. Now I'm ready to copy and paste this cloud file into our flag file. So I'm going to go to Select All, and I'm going to choose Edit, Copy Merged. I'll go to the flag file, clicking on the background, and I'll paste it in. Next we need to create the dove. I'll add a new layer, and I'm going to get my polygon lasso tool. I'll start by just drawing what would be the body. That's going to be white, so I'll hit D on the keyboard, and to go to my defaults, and I'll hold the command key and hit delete on the keyboard, and I'll deselect and I'll save. Now I want to put a stroke on this to give it a bit of a black outline. So I'll go to my layer window, and either I'll double click on the gray of it here, or I'll go down to FX and introduce the stroke. And I'm going to set the stroke for black, and I'm going to set the width for 1. And I'm going to make sure that it's on the outside. And I'll click OK. Now we want to imply that this is at the bird's body and the head is over here, so we have to put a beak on it. I'll lock the transparency, I'll get my marquee tool, and I'll make a selection of the front tip. Going to my swatch menu, I'll pick up an orange to mix the color range. Option delete to fill it, or you can paint it if you choose. And now I'm going to make an eye. Now to do that, I'm going to hit B on the keyboard. I'm going to make sure my brush hardness has been returned to 100%. And I'll reduce the scale. And again, to introduce a different color, I'm going to go down and get a middle value to dark green. And I'll click and put the eye in. And I want to put a pupil on it, so I'll kind of zoom in here. I'll hit D on the keyboard to get black. And now I'll just reduce the size of my brush using the open bracket, put a bit of a pupil. Next I'm going to create a wing, so I'm going to put a new layer in, and I'm going to hit L on the keyboard once again. I'll just draw a shape that looks so kind of like a bird's wing that goes with the style of the body. I'll fill that with white, and I'll also put the stroke on that. Now, when the bird flaps, I don't want to see this black line at the bottom up because I want it to seem as if the wing is coming from the body inside here somewhere attached. So I'm going to go to the layer in my layer window, and I'll right click and I'll choose rasterize layer. Then I'll put my layer mask on, and I'll get my brush and I'll clear off that edge a bit. Now that I've got one wing made, I'll go over and I'll right click on my layer mask icon directly on it and choose apply layer mask. And I'm going to duplicate it. So I can go to my layer window if I choose, and the waffles in the corner, I can click on them and you'll see the option to duplicate. Now there's also the key quick is Command J. Now I have two of them, and one of them has got to be behind the body. So I'll select the one we made first, and I'll move it down in the layer order, and now I can move it over and it appears to be behind on the other side of the bird. Now I'm just going to take a moment to rotate these a little bit so this break up the redundancy of the both being exactly the same in the same position. Now because we have to make two of these, I need one with the wings up, one with the wings down. We've got to bake in this one with the pieces without merging these down. So it's pretty simple. I'm going to turn off all the other layers except for the bird layers, the wings and the body. And I'll select all, and I'll choose Edit, Copy Merged, and then I'll paste it. So now I have one with that position permanent, and I'm going to name it Wings Up, and I'll turn it off for the time being. Now I'm going to flip the wings vertically so they're down. So I'll select one at a time here, and I'll hit Command T, right click inside and choose Flip Vertical, and I'll start to put that down into position. And I'll do the same with the other one. Right click, choose Flip Vertical, and I'll put that into position. And now I'm just going to put them in view. Now we don't have to do anything else as far as the bird wings for each of them now that we have them, so we could conceivably just merge these down, which I'm going to do. So now we've got two birds, one with the wings vertical, one horizontal. And I'll just take a moment to kind of line them up here a bit. And they need to be scaled. They're kind of large at this point because of the size of them. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll shift select them and I'll hit Command T. I'll scale them so they both fit. Next we have to make the olive branch. So I'm going to put a new layer in, and I'll hit B on the keyboard, making sure my brush hardness is set for 100%. And I'm going to go get a green. We'll be putting a stroke on, so that will define the shape of it even more. But we're using my green where the red would be 125, the green is 217, blue is 132. And I'm going to reduce the brush size to 5. And then I'll go and I'll make the branch of the olive branch. I'm going to put the stroke on right away so that I can see this as I'm creating, because the values are very much the same. So I'll double click on the gray of the layer, or I'll go down to FX and let's put stroke on that. And now I can see it pretty well. I'll bump up the size of my brush and I'll just go in and make some shapes that kind of look like a leaf. With the one olive branch created, I'll duplicate it, hitting Command J. I'll just move it off to the side. Now each bird is going to have an olive branch merged with it. So I'll go and turn off one of my birds, and I'll grab an olive branch. I want it to be behind the beak. I don't want it to go over. So I'll put it behind, and I'll select the bird, shift select the branch, Command E, and I'll turn that one off, and then I'll do the same with the other one. So now we've got everything we need to begin the motion graphic animation process.